My husband abandoned me at the airport on our honeymoon day to care for his ex-wife. He spent the whole week living with her. I'm 29 years old. I work in digital marketing. And about 3 months ago, my 1 month marriage went completely to shit in the most ridiculous and painful way you can imagine. And when I say ridiculous, I mean that literally my honeymoon ended before it started because my now ex-husband decided that helping his ex-wife with a twisted ankle was more important than, you know, going on our newlywed trip. Yeah, you read that right. A twisted ankle. But let me start from the beginning, because this story is way more complicated than it seems, and I need to tell it completely so you understand why I made the decisions I made. I met Daniel like 3 years ago at a business conference. He worked in financial consulting, one of those guys who always has his phone in his hand and is answering emails at 2 in the morning. From the beginning, I found him attractive, intelligent, ambitious, all those things you think you want in a partner. He warned me from day one that he was a workaholic, that his job was his priority, but I thought, well, I'm also dedicated to my career. We can make it work. What I didn't know at that time, or what maybe I ignored because I was in love, was that his ex-wife Amanda was also part of that package of priorities that came before me. Daniel and Amanda had divorced like 2 years before we met. According to him, it was an amicable divorce. No drama. They just realized they didn't work as a couple but wanted to maintain the friendship. And look, I'm not one of those jealous people who think your ex should disappear from your life forever. Like if you get along well and you were important to each other, it's okay to stay in touch. The problem was that Daniel and Amanda didn't just stay in touch. They basically kept functioning as if they were married, but without the romantic commitment. She would call him for everything, absolutely everything, from her computer not working to needing help assembling an IKEA furniture piece, and he was always available for her. At first, I tried to be the cool girlfriend. You know, the one who doesn't make drama and trusts her partner. I would tell my friends, it's nothing. They're friends, they have history together, it's normal. But it started to bother me when he would cancel plans with me because Amanda needed something. Once we were about to go out to dinner to celebrate my birthday, and she called him because her car wouldn't start and she needed him to drive her somewhere. We arrived 2 hours late to the restaurant. Another time we had planned a weekend together, and he spent half of Saturday at her apartment helping her paint a wall. A wall. As if she couldn't hire someone or ask her own friends or family. When I mentioned this to Daniel, he would tell me I was being insecure, that Amanda was just a friend, that I was the woman he was going to spend the rest of his life with, and that should be enough for me. And I wanted to believe him. Honestly. I wanted to think I was overreacting, that my friends were putting ideas in my head when they told me that dynamic wasn't normal. So when he proposed to me like a year and a half ago, I said yes without thinking much about it. I thought marriage would change things. That once we were married, he would understand that I was his priority now, not his work or his ex. We got married 3 months ago in a small ceremony, nothing too elaborate, like 80 people between family and close friends. It was a beautiful day. Honestly. One of those you see in movies where everything goes perfect, and you think that's how the rest of your life is going to be. We planned a honeymoon to Greece, 2 weeks touring the islands, something we had been organizing for months. I was so excited. I had bought new clothes. I had made a list of all the places we wanted to visit. I had researched restaurants and hotels. It was like the official beginning of our life together. You know what I mean? The day of the flight came, and from the morning things were weird. Daniel had a meeting with a client that morning, like at 7 in the morning, and I had told him 1,000 times to try to move it or cancel it because our flight left at 3 in the afternoon, and we needed to be at the airport at 1. He swore to me he would arrive on time, that the meeting was quick, that I shouldn't worry. I went alone to the airport with the suitcases because he was going to come straight from his office. Already at the airport doing check-in. I started to get nervous because it was 1:30, and he wasn't answering my messages or my calls. Like, Daniel, where are you? No response. Then, when I was already at the waiting area, literally like 40 minutes left before boarding would start, I received a message from him. Not a call, a message. And the message said something like, I'm so sorry, I won't be able to go. Amanda had an accident and needs help. I love you. See you when you get back. I read that message like 5 times, without being able to process it. Accident? Won't be able to go? To our honeymoon? Was this seriously happening? I called him immediately, and of course he didn't answer the first 3 calls, but on the 4th he finally responded. I asked him what the hell was going on, and he explained to me, with a super calm voice as if he was talking about the weather, that Amanda had called crying because she had twisted her ankle going down the stairs of her building and couldn't walk well and needed someone to take her to the hospital. I literally couldn't believe what I was hearing. I told him, "Daniel, it's our honeymoon flight. We've been planning this for months. She can call any of her friends or family, or she can order an Uber." And he told me I was being selfish, that it was a medical emergency, and that he wasn't going to abandon someone who needed help just for some vacation. Some vacation. That's what he called our honeymoon. Some vacation. I don't know if you've ever felt that sensation, where your whole body fills with a rage so big that you don't know if you're going to scream or cry or break something. I was standing there in the middle of the airport with my pink suitcase next to me, my passport in my hand, surrounded by excited couples going on vacation, and my husband of 1 month was telling me he wasn't coming to our honeymoon because his ex-wife had twisted an ankle. An ankle. She wasn't in the hospital with a broken leg or in a car accident or with something serious. She had twisted her ankle. And instead of calling an ambulance or one of her friends or her family, she had called my husband, and he had chosen to go. I told him that if he didn't get on that plane with me, our marriage was over. I said it seriously, with that voice you use when you're not threatening but stating a fact. He sighed, told me I was being dramatic, and that we would talk when I calmed down, and hung up. He just hung up. I stood there with the phone in my hand, looking at the screen, thinking that maybe he was going to call back, that he was going to come to his senses, that he was going to appear running through the airport terminal like in the movies saying he was sorry and that of course he was coming, but none of that happened. They called my flight to board and I was still standing there, waiting for a man who clearly wasn't coming. So I did something that I probably shouldn't have done, but that at the moment seemed like the only reasonable option. I called my sister, Emily. She lives in Miami, like a 3-hour flight from where I was, and I told her everything crying in the middle of the airport. She told me, "Don't get on that plane to Greece alone. Come here, stay with me for a few days." So I canceled my flight to Greece. Well, technically, I only used my ticket. Daniel lost his, and I bought a ticket to Miami. I arrived at Emily's house like at 8 at night, with my 2 suitcases full of beach clothes and pretty dresses I had bought specifically for the honeymoon, and I started crying for like 2 hours straight. Emily is 5 years older than me and has always been like my second mom. She had met Daniel at the wedding, obviously, and she had never really liked him. She always said something smelled fishy with that whole ex-wife thing. But that night, she didn't tell me I told you so. She didn't make me feel worse. She just hugged me and let me cry. And then she made me a huge margarita and told me we were going to forget about Daniel for a few days. The next day, she took me to the beach. Then we went shopping. Later, we went out to dinner, and we ended up at a nightclub because she said she needed to see her little sister having fun instead of crying. And I'm not gonna lie, I felt bad being there dancing and drinking while I was supposed to be on my honeymoon. But also a part of me thought, you know what? If Daniel can abandon me for his ex, I can go out dancing with my sister. So that's what I did. Emily took like 1,000 photos of me that night, of the 2 of us dancing, taking shots, laughing, and I uploaded them all to my social media. And yeah, part of me did it so Daniel would see them and feel bad. I wanted him to know that I wasn't going to stay home crying waiting for him to decide I was important enough to pay attention to. The photos reached Daniel. Obviously. I don't know if he saw them directly or if someone showed them to him, but the next day I started receiving calls from his family and from my own parents. And his mom called me to tell me it was disrespectful that I was partying while Daniel was helping someone in a medical emergency. And my father-in-law sent me a message telling me I was acting like an immature child. And the worst was when my own mother called me, super disappointed, telling me that she hadn't raised me to be so insensitive, that Daniel had done the right thing by helping someone in need, and that I should be proud to have such a noble husband instead of dancing at clubs as if I were single. That hurt me more than anything else. Honestly. That my own family was on Daniel's side without even asking me my version of the story. So I did something that I also shouldn't have done, but that I felt I had to do. I wrote a long message, like a college essay, explaining the whole situation from my perspective. I told them about the years of putting work before me, about all the times he had canceled plans for Amanda, about how she would call him for anything, and he was always available for her but never for me. I explained to them that this wasn't about a medical emergency. It was about a pattern of behavior that had been going on for years. It was about the fact that my husband had consciously chosen not to come to our honeymoon for something that any other person could have resolved. I sent the message to my parents, to my in-laws, to Emily, basically to all the family that had been calling to scold me, and after that, silence. Daniel didn't contact me again. No calls, no messages, nothing. I was still in Miami with Emily. Like 5 days passed, and he hadn't sent me a single message asking how I was or where I was or if I was going to come home. So I decided that was enough, and I bought a ticket back. I arrived at the house, our house, the apartment we had rented together a year ago, and the scene I found was basically my worst nightmare come true. The place was a disaster. There were dirty dishes in the sink, clothes thrown everywhere, the bed unmade, trash not taken out. It looked like no one had cleaned in days, which was weird because Daniel was generally tidy. I started cleaning. I don't know why. I guess I needed to keep my hands busy while I processed everything. I was washing dishes when I heard the door open and Daniel walked in. I'm not lying. When I saw him, my heart raced because I thought maybe there was going to be some explanation, some apology, something that would make all this make sense. But he just looked at me and said hi, as if nothing. As if I had been away a normal weekend, and not like he had abandoned me on our honeymoon. I asked him where he had been all week, and his answer left me frozen. He told me, very casual, that he had been at Amanda's apartment taking care of her because she couldn't walk well with the twisted ankle and needed help with basic things like cooking and cleaning. The whole week. He had spent the whole week, the one that was supposed to be our honeymoon, living at his ex-wife's apartment, cooking for her, cleaning for her, taking care of her. While I was in Miami trying not to have a mental breakdown, he was playing house with Amanda. I didn't scream, I didn't cry, I didn't make a scene. I simply took my purse, grabbed my car keys, and told him I was going to my parents' house and that I didn't want to see him again. He didn't even try to stop me. He just said something like, "Okay, I think we both need space." I drove to my parents' house, which is like an hour away, and when I arrived and told them what had happened, about Daniel having been living with Amanda the whole week, their faces changed completely. My mom, who 2 days before had told me I was being immature, was now furious with Daniel. My dad, who had always been a fan of his, said that was crossing a line. They completely supported me when I told them I wanted to get divorced. My mom even helped me look for lawyers, and my dad offered me money for legal expenses if I needed it. The divorce process was surprisingly quick. Since we had only been married for a month, there wasn't much to divide. I hired a lawyer, sent the papers, and Daniel signed them without fighting. He didn't even ask for a meeting to talk, didn't try to convince me to try again. He just signed everything and sent me an email, because he didn't even have the guts to call me, where he said he was sorry things had ended like this, but that he couldn't be with someone as insecure as me, someone who didn't understand the importance of helping the people you love. Like, that I needed to work on my jealousy issues before being in a serious relationship with anyone. I read that email like 20 times. Each time I got angrier. This man had abandoned me on our honeymoon, had spent a week living with his ex-wife, and now he was blaming me for having insecurity issues. The audacity? Seriously? But I also realized something reading that email. I realized that Daniel genuinely didn't see anything wrong with what he had done. To him, I was the one who was wrong, the one with the problems, the one who didn't understand how healthy relationships worked. And that made me see that making the decision to divorce had been absolutely the right thing, because how do you build a life with someone who literally lives in a different reality than yours? The divorce was finalized like a month ago. Officially, I've been divorced longer than I was married, which is funny in a sad way. I moved in with Emily to Miami, got a new job at the marketing agency that pays better than my previous job. And I'm starting from zero in many ways. I deleted all the wedding photos from my social media, donated my wedding dress, changed my relationship status back to single. It's weird how your life can change completely in a matter of weeks. Do I regret marrying Daniel? Honestly, I don't know yet. Obviously, it was a mistake in retrospect, but at the time, I felt it was the right thing. Do I regret getting divorced? Not at all. I heard through mutual friends that Daniel and Amanda are dating again. Apparently, they realized they were still in love after all that time, that they should never have gotten divorced. Part of me wants to laugh because, clearly I was seeing something he insisted didn't exist. But another part of me just feels relief for having gotten out of that situation before it became even more complicated. Last week, my mom asked me if I'm going to trust someone again. After all this, I told her I didn't know. That, for now, I just want to focus on myself and on rebuilding my life. Emily says I'm stronger than I think. That surviving something like this in your first year of marriage and having the courage to leave says a lot about your character. I guess she's right. I don't feel particularly strong most days, but I'm here. I keep going forward, and that counts for something.